The plane worked. The passengers loved it. The world admired it. And still Concorde failed. For a short moment in history, the future of air travel was real. It had a sharp white nose, delta wings, and engines powerful enough to shake the ground. Its name was Concorde. This was not just another passenger aircraft. It could fly faster than the speed of sound. While ordinary jets crossed the Atlantic in 7 or 8 hours, Concorde could take passengers from London to New York in about 3.5. It looked like science fiction. Its nose bent downward before landing. Its body was long and thin like a missile. And when it climbed high above the clouds, it entered a world no normal passenger jet could touch. It broke the sound barrier. For decades, people believed this was the beginning of a new age. A world where business travelers could have breakfast in London, lunch in New York, and return home before the day was over. But then something strange happened. The future stopped flying. In 2003, Concorde was retired forever. No new supersonic passenger jet replaced it. The fastest way to cross the Atlantic simply vanished from everyday aviation. So why did the most glamorous passenger aircraft ever built disappear? The answer is not just one crash, one flaw, or one bad decision. Concorde was not defeated by speed. It was defeated by noise, fuel, money, safety, and a world that no longer wanted to pay for that kind of future. And the most painful part is this. Concorde did exactly what it was designed to do. That was not enough. To understand why Concorde failed, you first need to understand why it was created. In the 1950s and 1960s, the world was obsessed with speed. Cars were becoming faster. Rockets were going into space. Jet aircraft had already changed travel forever. The next step seemed obvious. If military aircraft could fly faster than sound, why couldn't passenger aircraft do the same? Britain and France decided to build that feature together. They wanted more than a plane. They wanted a symbol of progress, power, and engineering superiority. This was an age when nations competed not only with armies, but with technology. America had rockets. The Soviet Union had space achievements. Europe wanted Concorde, and on paper, the idea sounded unstoppable. A passenger aircraft that could cruise at over Mach 2, more than twice the speed of sound. It would fly so high that passengers could see the dark edge of space above them and the curve of the Earth below. It would not just shorten flights. It would shrink the planet. But hidden inside this dream was a dangerous belief. The creators of Concorde believed speed was so valuable that passengers, airlines, and governments would always be willing to pay for it. At first, that belief looked correct. But the sky was about to teach them a brutal lesson. Speed is powerful, but speed is not always profitable. Concorde did not look like other passenger jets because it could not fly like other passenger jets. A normal airliner is built for comfort, stability, and fuel efficiency. It flies below the speed of sound, where the air behaves in a more predictable way. Concorde entered a much harsher world. As an aircraft approaches the speed of sound, air pressure builds up in front of it. Shock waves form. Drag rises violently. The aircraft has to punch through an invisible wall of compressed air. To survive this, Concorde needed a radical design. Its long, sharp nose helped cut through the air. Its thin body reduced drag. Its delta wings gave it stability at extreme speeds. And its powerful engines gave it the force needed to push past the sound barrier. At cruising speed, Concorde flew at around 60,000 feet, much higher than normal passenger jets. The air up there was thinner, so the plane faced less resistance. But speed created another problem. At Mach 2, friction with the air heated the aircraft's skin. Concorde's metal body expanded during flight. The plane could actually stretch because of the heat. Think about that. This was a passenger aircraft that became longer while flying because it was moving so fast. Every part of it had to survive conditions ordinary airliners never faced. This made Concorde a masterpiece. But it also made it expensive, delicate, and difficult to operate. The same design that made Concorde legendary also planted the seeds of its failure. When Concorde entered commercial service in 1976, it became the most exclusive passenger plane in the world. This was not a plane for ordinary families going on holiday. This was a flying club for the rich, the famous, and the powerful. Business leaders, celebrities, politicians, and millionaires paid premium prices for one thing: time. A transatlantic flight that usually took most of a working day could be finished in just a few hours. For people whose schedules were worth millions, that was intoxicating. Passengers were served fine food and champagne. The cabin was narrow, but the experience felt elite. The ticket itself became a status symbol. To fly Concorde meant you were not just traveling, you were ahead of everyone else. For a while, this seemed to prove that the future had arrived. The media loved it. Aviation fans worshipped it. Passengers felt special. Concorde became more than transportation. It became an icon. But while the public saw beauty, airlines saw something else. Fuel bills, maintenance bills, noise restrictions, limited routes, and a plane that only worked when every condition was just right. The dream was alive, but underneath the glamour, the business model was already bleeding. Concorde's first major enemy was not a broken engine. It was sound. When an aircraft flies faster than sound, it creates shock waves. These waves travel down to the ground as a sudden explosive noise called a sonic boom. To people below, it can sound like thunder, a blast, or a giant crack across the sky. And that created a huge problem. If Concorde flew supersonic over cities, towns, and homes, millions of people would hear it. Windows could rattle. Animals could panic. Residents would complain. Governments quickly realized that supersonic passenger flight over land was politically dangerous. So Concorde was restricted. It could fly at full supersonic speed mainly over oceans, where the boom would not disturb people on the ground. This single issue destroyed the dream of a global supersonic network. Concorde could not simply fly from any major city to any other major city at Mach 2. Many routes became useless because too much of the journey crossed land. That meant the aircraft was mostly limited to a few prestigious ocean routes, especially London to New York and Paris to New York. A normal airliner could be sent almost anywhere. Concorde could only truly be Concorde in a narrow part of the world. It was a racehorse with almost nowhere to run. And once the routes became limited, the next problem became impossible to hide. The second enemy was fuel. Supersonic speed is brutally expensive. To push a large passenger aircraft through the sky at twice the speed of sound requires enormous power. Concorde's engines were engineering marvels, but they were also extremely hungry. A normal wide-body jet could carry hundreds of passengers across the ocean and spread the fuel cost across many tickets. Concorde carried far fewer passengers while burning far more fuel. That meant every seat had to be expensive. At first, this seemed acceptable. Concorde was built for premium passengers, not mass travel. But then the world changed. The oil crisis of the 1970s made fuel much more expensive. Airlines everywhere began focusing less on speed and more on efficiency. This was where Concorde started to look like a machine from the wrong future. A Boeing 747 was slower, but it could carry several times more passengers at a lower cost per person. It made more money because it served a much larger market. For the average traveler, arriving a few hours earlier was not worth paying several times more. And for airlines, operating a small, fuel-hungry supersonic aircraft became harder to justify. Concorde won the race in speed. But commercial aviation is not only a race. It is a business. And in business, a slower plane that makes profit will beat a faster plane that burns money. This is where the dream started to crack. Not in the sky. On the balance sheet. Concorde also had a quieter, more dangerous problem. It did not just need passengers. It needed the perfect passenger. Someone rich enough to pay a huge fare. Important enough to value a few saved hours. Traveling on the right route. At the right time. Again and again. That is a very small market. Because of its supersonic shape, Concorde had a narrow body and limited seating. It could not carry hundreds of passengers like a jumbo jet. That made every flight financially fragile. A normal large aircraft can make money from many types of customers. Economy passengers, business travelers, cargo, connecting routes, and seasonal demand. Concorde had almost no flexibility. It needed premium passengers paying premium fares on a limited number of routes. If demand weakened, there was no cheap backup plan. And the cabin, while exclusive, was not especially spacious. The real luxury was not comfort. It was time. That worked for a small group of people. But it was never enough to transform global aviation. Then there was maintenance. Concorde flew faster, higher, and hotter than any other passenger aircraft. Its structure expanded from heat. Its engines operated under extreme stress. Its systems were unique and expensive. Airlines could not treat it like a normal plane. Spare parts were specialized. Technicians needed rare expertise. The fleet was tiny, so costs could not be spread across hundreds of aircraft. Everything about Concorde was rare. Rare routes, rare parts, rare passengers, rare skills. That rarity made it beautiful. But rarity also made it fragile. And the longer Concorde stayed in service, the harder it became to keep the whole ecosystem alive. Then came the moment that turned doubt into fear. For many years, Concorde still had one powerful advantage. It was seen as safe, elite, and carefully controlled. Expensive, noisy, and limited, yes. But prestigious. Then in July 2000, that image was shattered. Air France Flight 4590 crashed shortly after takeoff from Paris. Everyone on board was killed, along with several people on the ground. The tragedy shocked the world. Investigators found that debris on the runway played a key role. A tire burst during takeoff. Fragments struck the aircraft. Fuel leaked and ignited. In seconds, the situation became impossible to control. Concorde was grounded. Engineers made modifications, and the aircraft eventually returned to service. But something had changed. The crash did not single-handedly kill Concorde. That is too simple. The real problem was that Concorde had already become expensive, limited, and aging. The crash damaged the one thing it still depended on most: confidence. Passengers who paid huge sums were not only buying speed, they were buying trust, prestige, and the feeling of being above ordinary risk. After that day, Concorde was no longer just a miracle. It was a risk people could imagine. The legend survived physically, but commercially it never fully recovered. And for a machine that depended on legend, that wound was fatal. At this point, the obvious question is simple. Why didn't engineers just build a better Concorde? A larger one, a quieter one, a more efficient one? The problem is that supersonic passenger travel is not one challenge. It is a chain of brutal compromises. If you make the aircraft faster, fuel burn rises. If you make it larger, weight and heat become harder to control. If you make it quieter, the design becomes more complex. If you want it to fly over land, you must solve the sonic boom. If you want cheaper tickets, you need more passengers. But more passengers mean more weight, more fuel, and more engineering problems. Every solution creates another problem. That is why ordinary passenger jets continued to dominate. They were not as exciting, but they were practical. They could fly almost anywhere. They could carry many people. They could offer different ticket prices. They could operate thousands of routes. Concorde was brilliant at one narrow mission: flying rich passengers very fast across the Atlantic. But aviation did not need a miracle for a few people. It needed efficient machines for millions of people. This is the painful truth. The future of air travel did not become faster. It became cheaper, safer, quieter, and more profitable. The world did not reject Concorde because it is unimpressive. The world rejected Concorde because ordinary jets made more sense. And in the real world, sense wins. In the end, Concorde did not fail because people stopped admiring it. People never stopped admiring it. It failed because admiration is not enough to keep an aircraft in the sky. Airlines wanted efficiency. Passengers wanted cheaper tickets. Governments wanted quieter skies. Businesses discovered that not every meeting required crossing an ocean at twice the speed of sound. Modern aircraft became less glamorous, but more useful. They carried more people, burned less fuel per seat, and connected more cities. Concorde represented one possible future: speed above everything. But the world chose another future: efficiency above everything. That is why Concorde disappeared. Not because it was a bad aircraft, but because it was too specialized, too loud, too thirsty, too expensive, and too difficult to fit into the real economics of aviation. It was the perfect plane for a world that never fully arrived. Today, Concorde no longer flies. Its aircraft sit in museums, silent and motionless. People still stand beneath them and stare upward, because even on the ground, Concorde still looks like it belongs to tomorrow. And that is its strange victory. It failed as a business tool, but it succeeded as a symbol. It proved that humans could build a passenger aircraft faster than sound and operate it for decades. It showed what engineering ambition can achieve when nations decide to chase the impossible. Now, in the 21st century, companies are once again trying to bring back supersonic passenger flight. They promise quieter booms, cleaner engines, better materials, and smarter designs. Maybe one day, passengers will cross oceans faster than sound again. But any new supersonic jet will have to answer the questions Concorde could not escape. Can it be quiet enough? Can it be efficient enough? Can it be safe enough? Can it be cheap enough for more than a tiny group of passengers? Because Concorde taught the world one brutal lesson. Building the future is not enough. The future also has to make sense. And Concorde, the most beautiful passenger aircraft ever built, was a miracle the world admired, but would not pay for forever. If you enjoyed this story, watch the next video about another machine that once promised to change the world, but disappeared when reality fought back.